today we'll be going through your PSLE booklet for 2018. Alright, so we're going through booklet A. Okay, as always for booklet A, be very careful. Do pay attention to each option that is given because they tend to be very tricky. Alright, and it's always best possible answer. So make sure you go through each of the option and do elimination as needed. So for question number 1, which of the following organism can make its own food? So making its own food in this case would tell you that the process of photosynthesis is needed in this case. And with photosynthesis, the next thing that you know is that chlorophyll is needed. And your chlorophyll is actually green in color, right? So with this, right, you already know that you're looking for something that is green in color. So of all the options here, many students will confuse fern and mold because this two has the same way of reproduction, which is actually to reproduce by spores. Okay? So because they have this commonality, students tend to lump fern together with mold in the sense that the fern is unable to produce its own food, which is wrong because your fern actually is green in color and contains chlorophyll. So because it has chlorophyll, it will be able to make its own food. So answer would be number 1. Okay, your fern. Next. Okay, Ming-Fa observed a living thing under the microscope. Okay, based on Ming-Fa's observation, which is the correct conclusion? So looking at this, right, okay, it's always a compare and contrast. Okay, so if you look at this two, right, what is the difference between these two diagrams? So the difference would be if you look at after some time, the distance actually moved. That is the main difference. Okay, so if I were you, I will annotate it. Okay, so this is the main difference. So run down the options, okay, and see which is correct, which is wrong. So living things grow. Did they actually show you that your organism actually became bigger? So in this case, the answer is no. So therefore, wrong. Living things responds, possibly because it moved away, right? In this case. But wait, remember, we always need to check, okay, to make sure we eliminate. Okay, we eliminate, okay, this part one by one to make sure that it's correct, that the rest are wrong. So living things need food is also wrong because it doesn't show any feeding. Okay, living things reproduce is also wrong. If it's reproduce, you should see more. Okay, in terms of numbers. More of organism. Not just bigger in size, but it has to be physically more, as in countable. Please copy down all these annotations. They are there to help you. Okay. Next. Number 3, the arrows in the diagram represent the different processes. Okay. So once again, I see things like carbon dioxide. I see things like plant. I see things like animals. Right off the top, I'm guessing that this is actually a photosynthesis or a respiration question. So I've told students many times, the most important thing to do is to write down the word equation for photosynthesis and respiration right at the start so that you don't get confused. So I'm just going to pen it down really quickly for you once again. I know that this has been repeated many times, but it's really key to answer questions. So for photosynthesis, always remember that you will need carbon dioxide together with water in the presence of light energy and chlorophyll, which will give you glucose or your sugar, your simple sugar, together with oxygen. Whereas your respiration, okay, you will actually use digested food, or you have your glucose together with oxygen, which will give you energy together with carbon dioxide and water. So as you can see, these are actually the opposite of each other. Carbon dioxide is taken in photosynthesis but given out in respiration. Water is taken in photosynthesis but given out in respiration. Glucose is given out or produced in photosynthesis, but in respiration you actually need it. Oxygen is given out in photosynthesis, but oxygen is used in respiration. So they are really opposite. So by writing this down, you can use it as reference materials for all the questions later on. Now, so what do arrows A and B represent? So you have this living thing here and a process that gives out carbon dioxide. So you look at these two. Which one gives out carbon dioxide? It's very obvious. It is actually respiration. So therefore you know that process A has to be respiration. And what involves respiration, or what does respiration involve? Actually it's breathing, because breathing is the one that actually gives you your oxygen intake. So right off the top, I already know that breathing is correct. This 2 is wrong. We can go ahead and cancel out option 1 and option 3, leaving us with only option 2 and 4. Then I also know that from this process over here, B, carbon dioxide is taken in. So which process actually takes in carbon dioxide? Straight away you know it's actually photosynthesis. So therefore the answer has to be 4. Very straightforward and very direct. Next. Okay. So this is no longer tested. So we'll run through this really quickly. The diagram shows a food web in a habitat. S, T, U, V, W, and X represent different organisms. Okay. So basically they ask you what is a correct conclusion. Your answer would be number 4. Okay, I'm just going to go through very quickly, because as you can see, since S is eaten by T, we know that S needs to be a producer. Alright, with most food chains and food webs, it has to start with a producer. And how does your producer obtain energy? It's actually from the sun. Alright, so therefore answer is 4. Moving on, number 5. Okay, once again, this is no longer tested. Okay, this is under living together. However, some of the concepts are still relevant, so I'm just going to quickly go through it. Fertilizers help tiny floating plants grow quickly and cover the surface of ponds. Okay, the following events took place when fertilizers from a farm entered a nearby pond. So when fertilizers enter a nearby pond, what happens is that it encourages growth of these floating plants. So all of them will float and they will grow, their leaves will become bigger. And when that happens, it will start to block off. Okay, sunlight could not reach the organism in the pond because it will start to block off. Alright, so you imagine if this is the pond, the surface of the pond, your plant starts to grow on top rapidly. Okay, a lot of them grow. And they cover up the surface of it. Your sunlight would not be able to reach the bottom. Right? where your other underwater plants are. So these underwater plants here will not be able to have any sunlight. Eventually, these plants will die. Okay? So that is number 2. The population of plants will decrease. Underwater plants. And then when they die, what happens is that you have your decomposers coming in, your bacteria. Now your bacteria, they are also living things. Remember this. So when the bacteria multiplies rapidly, it will use up all the oxygen in the water. So when it uses up all the oxygen in the water, it will then cause your population of fish to decrease. Simply because there is no more dissolved oxygen for your fish to obtain for respiration. Okay, so answer number 4. Next. Okay, this is a very common question. Now, the chart below shows how substance P and Q are transported in the human body. Now, what are some common substances that you've learned? Straight off the top, you should be able to list them out mentally. Okay, things that you have learned before are gases. The 2 primary gases that we're concerned with is always oxygen and carbon dioxide. We also learned about digested food. Okay, we also learned about certain waste products. Alright, so these are the things that comes to your mind immediately. It can only be that few. And the next thing is they ask you, what are the systems Y and Z? Now, I always, when you look at this, right, the first one that I always want to identify is the circulatory system. Because it is the circulatory system whereby everything goes in and out. So you need to pass through your circulatory system first. Reason being that your circulatory system is the one that carries substances around the body. So all substances has to enter and all substances have to leave. So if you look at this, right, it's very straightforward. System Y is actually your circulatory system. Now I will annotate it down on my paper so that I can then reason it out with myself and externalize my thoughts to see whether or not it makes sense. So because system Y is circulatory, right, you see whatever goes in will come out. Whatever goes in will come out. So it passes through system Y. Okay? Then after that, I look at what is here. Other parts of the body. Okay? Which substance that I have learned? Just now I listed, right? I said digested food, I said carbon dioxide, and I say oxygen. Okay, let's just list them down. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, CO2 is carbon dioxide, and then I have digested food. These are the 3 primary ones, and sometimes even waste products. Which of these, right, will come out from other parts? Can it be oxygen? No, what? Your body doesn't produce oxygen. Okay? Can it be digested food? But if it's digested food, it should be from the digestive system, right? And not from every single part of the other parts of the body. How about carbon dioxide? Yes, makes sense. Why? Because earlier on, if you look at this over here, we know that carbon dioxide is produced by respiration. Okay, so from this, we know that, yes, it actually fits the description of it coming out from other parts of the body. Okay, so P is actually carbon dioxide. Okay, and what about Q? So think about it. What is it that, it comes only from Q and then it goes to every other part of the body? Okay, now in this case, if you take a look at it, your P comes from other parts and it goes to this other system. Think about it. Which other system would receive carbon dioxide? Would supposed to receive carbon dioxide? It's actually your respiratory system, because that is the only one that would want to receive your carbon dioxide and remove it. That's supposed to be the case. I know you've learned of other systems such as digestive system, but your digestive system really doesn't want to receive carbon dioxide. Okay? So then after that, you reason with yourself again. Okay, so Q, what could come from respiratory system? Oxygen, right? And it makes sense because from here, your oxygen needs to be delivered to all parts of the body for respiration to happen in every single cell. Why every single cell? Because every single cell needs to carry out respiration in order to obtain energy to survive. Okay? So because of that, straight off the top, I know system Y is respiratory, circulatory. Anything that's not circulatory, I can go ahead and cross it out. So option 1 and option 3 is out, leaving me with option 2 and 4. Then I go on to the next one. Okay, circulatory system. Okay, Z is respiratory, correct. P is actually carbon dioxide. And Q is oxygen. Okay, so therefore option 2. Alright, moving on to 7. Okay, a fruit was cut open as shown. Okay, which of the following statements are correct? Okay, we have to go through one by one and justify why is it true or why is it not true. So the fruit and seeds were developed from a flower. This is true. Okay, because the fruit and seeds are parts of a flower actually. Okay, now take note that there is also a trick question whereby they will show you a plant with leaves, and then after that with fruits, and then they ask you, okay, is this plant a flowering plant? Even though there is no flowers on this plant, it is considered a flowering plant for sure, because you cannot get fruits without flowers. So this is a trick question. Be very careful. If you see fruits, it means the plant has to be a flowering plant. There is no way on earth it can have fruits without having flowers. Okay? B. There were many ovules in this in the ovary. Yes, this is also true due to the many seeds. So the many seeds part tells me that there are very many ovules. Okay? The seeds were small and will be dispersed by wind. This is not true. The small seeds actually allows it to be swallowed by the animals. Okay? If you want dispersal by wind, you're looking for small and light seeds together, coupled together with some sort of a wing structure. So this is missing wing structure. Okay? So the wing structure will help it to be carried further away, or at least it should be light. Okay? Last but not least, pollination had taken place, definitely. Okay? Without pollination and fertilization, okay, it would not have happened. Now, on this note, I would like to point out that pollination and fertilization are two different processes. And you need to memorize, okay, the definition of pollination, okay, and the definition of fertilization. Over the years, it has come to attention that the PSLE booklet, right, they are testing you on definition. Last year, 2020, they tested you on the definition of melting point. What is melting point? Okay, so basically we realized that they could test you on definition of processes, because melting is a process. Alright, so I'm going to tell you what is fertilization and pollination. Please take extreme careful note. Okay, certain key features needs to be there. It's a must. No negotiation. Definition question is either a 1 or 0 mark. So pollination, right, you have to mention to me is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, okay, of flower. Okay, so it can be in the same flower or it can be different flowers. That means your pollen grain could come from the same flower or it can come from a different flower. But the key idea is the word transfer must be there. Transfer of what? Pollen grain. From where to where? Okay, extremely important. Now, what is fertilization? Fertilization is basically the fusion of a male and female sac cell. That's it, to become a single cell. So for the human beings, your male sex cells will be your sperm and the female sex cell will be the egg. Okay, so they fuse to become one single cell. Alright, so keywords will include fusion, male and female sex cell. Alright, memorize the definition by heart. Okay, so A, B, and D, these are correct. So answer number 3. Alright, moving on in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, which of the following is not an impact of deforestation by cutting trees? So once again, this is no longer tested. However, okay, I want to quickly run through it. So it says cutting trees. So make sure you highlight certain keywords, okay, in not, okay, especially things. So we know that everything here is actually a impact except for smoke and haze. Because smoke and haze is actually caused by burning of forests, right? Not by cutting. So you need to be very careful. So students got this wrong because they didn't realize that it's not the same. Burning and cutting. Okay? Next. Question 9. Which of the following shows the mass of seed leaves changes during germination? So you need to know what is the function of your seed leaves. The function of your seed leaf is to provide food for the seedling. Okay, during germination. Okay, until the true leaves have appeared. Sorry. Okay, so before that, the first true leaves have appeared. Okay, there will be no photosynthesis. So because of that, your plant needs to grow, right? So the seed leaves are the one that provides food for your plant to grow. So very straightforward, the answer will be number 2, because it should decrease as the height of the young plant grows, okay? Because it will use up this seed leaf for its growth. So answer 2. Okay, once again, this is a very straightforward question that is no longer tested. However, we still go through it very quickly. So after harvesting their crops, farmers may leave behind some dead plants on the ground. Okay, how does leaving behind dead plants benefit the farmers? It is to make the soil fertile when the plants decompose. So when your plants decompose, it actually breaks down back into simpler substances or simpler nutrients. Okay, so that your crops can then reabsorb it, okay, to make food or for itself to grow. Okay, question 11. Okay, this is a question on reproduction of flowers or plants, sorry. Now the diagram shows a flower or plant Z. The reproductive parts are hidden in the flower. So whenever you look at like questions, right, you have to highlight keywords like this. The fact that it's hidden in the flower, right, already hints to me that this is not a wind pollinated flowers. Because for wind pollinated flowers, you want the anthers and stigma to be hanging out and exposed, okay, to the environment so that the wind can capture it easily. Okay, so in this case, it tells me that you will need a pollinator. Okay, you need a pollinator, okay, such as like an insect or an animal to actually pollinate it, to reach inside the flower. Okay, the flower gives off a strong smell. Once again, okay, this tells me that it is to attract pollinators again of some sort. Could be insects, could be animals. Okay, a gardener observes that the female part of the flower opens for 2 days and then dies before the male opens and dies. So this tells me that if I were to annotate this, is one after another. Okay, So in this case, right, straight off the top, I can already eliminate from here that it cannot be wind. Why would your flower need to give off a strong smell to the wind? Strong smell doesn't attract your wind, right? In any case, it doesn't help with pollination through wind. So straight off the top, I know that anything to do with wind is wrong. So option 2 and 4 is out. Then the only difference is, okay, they're asking you, is it within one flower or between two flowers? So the answer here is actually two flowers. Here's the explanation why. Because they tell you that the female part will open first. That means the male is inaccessible. So on one flower, only the female part is available. So if I were to draw out for you, okay, so maybe the female part is being exposed on one flower. Okay, this is flower A. And another flower, some other flower on some other plants of the same species, the female flower will have died already and only the male part is alive. That means this will actually encourage cross-pollination between two flowers. Okay, so this is flower A and flower B, because the male and female part mature at different times. Now this is a more advanced question. Now the reason why some plants they want to do that is to encourage diversity in the genes. This is also the very same reason why marriage between relatives, close relatives, are not encouraged, and they often end up with offsprings that are mutated or defective. Okay, because having similar gene pool really just subjects you to more diseases, genetic issues. Okay, I mean, it's a very long story to tell, so I'm just going to tell you that by not having the same flower to pollinate itself, okay, you get a greater genetic diversity, which encourages the flowers to better survive. Okay, should there be a disease outbreak. Okay, just like how, you know, if it's COVID, some people are naturally have better natural resistance or have lesser symptoms, less severe symptoms when contracted COVID. It's got to do with genetic diversity to a certain extent. So your answer would be number 3. Okay? Okay, so for this question, okay, A, B, C, D, and E are organs in the digestive system. The graph below shows the amount of undigested food leaving each organ after a meal. So for this question, the same thing. Once again, you should annotate and single out what exactly is the key words to help you identify the topic. So in this case, it's actually digested food. So this question is actually on your digestive system. So to answer this question, right, the first thing you need to remember is the flow of your digestive organs, the arrangement of them in your digestive tract. So what you can do is exams, right, you can actually write down from the point whereby your food first enters all the way down, okay, to where it exits. So the first part will be your mouth, followed by your gullet, and then after that you have your stomach, your small intestine, and then your large intestine. So your food actually goes this way down. So looking at this, right, you would know that food actually enters through your mouth. And food that enters in your mouth means that it has the highest amount of undigested food. So because it has the highest amount of undigested food, logically speaking, your B and your E can either be your mouth or your gullet. Why your gullet as well is because food just moves through there transiently. Means it's a very quick, it just passes through your gullet. It doesn't stay there for a very long time to digest anything. So whatever food amount, or rather any amount of undigested food that leaves your mouth and goes into your gullet will be more or less the same. And as I told you, because food enters the mouth, So that should be the highest amount of undigested food. So when you look at this, right, your B and your E, right, could either be your mouth or your gullet. Okay? You're not sure. Now, then after that, moving down your stomach should be C. Because some of the food will be further digested. So you should have a lesser amount of undigested food as compared to your mouth and your gullet leaving it, because your food will have more food will have been digested. And then after that, you have your small intestine and your large intestine. Now, to help us with this, right, we must always remember that your small intestine has two primary functions. This is very, very important. The first one is that, okay, it helps to complete digestion. So it has all the required different type of digestive juice to completely digest any undigested food where it is possible. So there will definitely be some food that cannot be digested. That's because your body doesn't produce that kind of special digestive juice. But when we say it completes, it means that whatever can be digested is digested at the small intestine. The second one is the absorption of digested food from your small intestine into the bloodstream. So your bloodstream would then be carry your digested food to every single cell in your body, together with oxygen, to carry out respiration. So you must be able to see the connection between the different systems. So the fact that your digested food get carried around your body allows your cells to carry out respiration. Okay? Now, since your small intestine actually has already completed the digestion, the amount of undigested food that goes into the large intestine and that when it leaves it should be the same. There should be no more change already, because no further digestion can happen in your large intestine. Alright? Since the digestion process completes in small intestine. Therefore, when you zoom back into the question itself, you will know that your A and your D, they could either be your small intestine or your large intestine. Alright, so what do we do now? Now we try and fit this, and we use the elimination method and the options to figure out the answer. So when you look at it, right, you would realize that C is actually supposed to be your stomach, but yet there is no such option. You have your C being the gullet for option 2 and C being the small intestine for option 3. That means this 2 is definitely wrong. So straight away you can cross out these 2 options. Now the reason why I use this to eliminate the first round is because the stomach, or rather C, is the only one that I'm certain of. That cannot be any of this, which is supposed to be the stomach. Okay, so for option 1 and option 4, you will see that C is not even in the option, because C is the stomach, which is non-existent, which is correct. Then after that, I will match. I know that A can either be the small intestine or the large intestine. But look at option 1, it says it's the mouth. Straight away, I know that this is wrong, and so I can cross out 1 as well, leaving me with option 4. And then I will tally. I say that the mouth, okay, could be either option B, okay, or A. Sorry, B or E, which is true. See? Over here. And then the gullet, okay, is E, alright, which is also correct. A is small intestines, which is here, correct, and large intestines for D, which is over here. So it matches up. So this confirms that the answer is actually 4. Question 13. Farah observed some animal cells under a microscope before and after placing them in a liquid substance Y. Farah drew her observations of a cell as shown. So right off the top, I see the word animal cells. Okay? So this should ring a bell to you that, okay, it's got to do with a question that is related to cells. Straight off the back, okay, I should know what are the structures associated with animal cells. So I should think of things like cytoplasm, cell membrane, as well as your nucleus. Alright? So then they ask you, which part of the cell allowed for movements of substance Y into the cell? So straight away, when I see the word movement of substance into the cell, I will relate this to the cell membrane. Because the function of the cell membrane is to control substances entering and leaving the cell. So for cell questions, right, you have to memorize, okay, the functions. Alright? So answer cell membrane. Next. Now, Liam wanted to find out whether a type of plant growing in places with different amount of carbon dioxide will have different number of tiny openings in their leaves. So these tiny openings, right off the top, when I see this question, okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is these few things. Okay, firstly, these tiny openings are called your stomata, and they serve two primary functions. One is gaseous exchange. Two is the loss of water vapor. Okay, so this loss of water vapor, the process is called transpiration. Alright, so this is something that should just bring up straight away when you see these drawings. Okay, and then just to revise a little bit more, the stomata is actually the pink colored openings. Now, then after that, these curved cells that I'm coloring green, okay, just in case for additional information, they are actually cells. They're called guard cells, okay, and they actually contains chloroplasts for photosynthesis. Okay, this is just additional info so that you know. Should they come in exams, you have a little bit more contextual knowledge. Now, then the question goes, she collected leaves from the same type of plant growing in different places and counted the tiny openings as shown. Okay, which of the following variables should Lilian keep constant? Okay, now when you encounter this kind of experiment question, the first thing is always ask yourself, what is the aim of the experiment? So the aim of the experiment, okay, is whether a type of plant growing in places with different amounts of carbon dioxide will have different number of openings. So the change variable in this case would be, okay, different amounts of carbon dioxide, or rather different places. So it's actually here. I'm going to change a different highlighter. So this is actually your change variable. Everything else should remain the same. Now, I also would like to caution students that results is not a variable. Results are results. Results is an outcome of the experiment. It cannot be kept the same because it's not supposed to be controlled by you. Okay? It's basically readings or results that you get from an experiment. So in this case, which of the following variables should Lilian keep constant? Everything else should be kept constant except your results as well as your change variable. So let's take a look. Size of plant, yes, should be kept the same. Number of tiny openings, you shouldn't write because this is actually your results. That's the aim, what you want to find out. So this one cannot be kept the same. Should not be kept the same. Amount of carbon dioxide in the air, okay, should not be kept the same also, because that is actually referring to the different places with different concentration of carbon dioxide. That is actually your change variable. Lastly, amount of photosynthesis. This is once again a process that cannot be controlled by you. Okay, because it's part of the natural process in the plant that actually gives you that is part of a natural occurrence in the plant. Okay, due to the size and everything else. So you cannot really keep this constant. So the only one that is changeable is actually kept the constant should be A only in this case. Right? How do you control photosynthesis? Next. 15. Alex performed a jump. The 3 stages of his jump are as shown. Okay? At which stage or stages did gravitational force act on him? So this is a very common trick question. Simple. As long as you're on Earth. Unless you're in a specialized chamber that negates gravity, gravitational force is always acting on you. If not, the boy should be floating up. Okay, going in space or whatever. He should not be planted to the ground. So the answer is 4. Okay, whether is he jumping, highest point and landing, gravitational force is acting on him at all instances. Okay, this question. Helen put a ceramic plate and a wooden bowl in the refrigerator overnight. So annotate first straight away different materials. Okay, this will help you see what is the point of this experiment. When she removes the plate and bowl from the refrigerator at the same time, her hands felt cold, that the plate was colder than the bowl. So straight off the top, I felt that the topic that they're testing me is actually heat and temperature, and the concept that they want to really look into would be conductors of heat. Right? Okay? Which of the following explains why her hands felt that the plate was colder than the bowl? So you have to understand with this, right? A lot of students will say that, oh, because the plate was colder, okay? Or coldness. Okay, there's more coldness in the plate. No. Actually, this phenomenon can be explained very easily by our usual way of describing how heat is being transferred from a place of higher temperature to a region of lower temperature. Okay, so what happened here was that the plate, okay, probably is actually a better conductor of heat, correct? Okay, so when you compare your ceramic plate, this one is a better conductor of heat. So because it's a better conductor of heat, it will allow heat to pass through it faster. Okay? So what happens was that heat, when the hands touch the bowl, heat was actually lost at a faster rate from the hands to the bowl. Okay, and that's why, alright, you actually felt, or she felt colder. Alright? Okay, from the hands to the plate. So, because in this case your hands have a higher temperature, so when you touch, because your hands are at room temperature, right? Because you're outside. So when you touch the plate, it felt cold because heat is being transferred from your hands to your plate at a faster rate than it would if your hands was touching your wooden bowl. So answer was 1. The plate conducted heat better than the bowl. Very straightforward. Next. Solar panels are placed on rooftops on some houses to produce electricity during daytime. So which energy received by solar panels is being used to produce electricity? Something very straightforward is actually light energy. The word solar would have told you that. Okay? Now, next question. Arctic placed 3 solids made of materials X, Y, and Z into a container of water. His observation is shown below. So he made 2 statements. X and Y are the same material. Y and Z are different materials. Which materials can be concluded from his observation? Okay. Now, we cannot conclude that X and Y are the same material. This shows that X and Y, they both have a greater density than water. That's why they sink. Okay? So this is not true because from the experiment, it only shows that X and Y have a greater density than water, or than the liquid, correct? Yeah, than water. Okay, the question said water. So because it had a greater density, it sinks. So think about it in that sense. If you have 2 different types of metal, one is gold and one is silver. They both are different materials, but they both will sink. No doubt about it. Okay, simply because they both have the greater density than water. Now, next, Y and Z are different materials. That we can be sure. Because they are different materials, that's why they have different density. And in this case, we can see that Z has a lighter, is less dense than Y. That's why it floats. Okay? In fact, it's probably less dense than water. That's why it's floating. So definitely this is correct. So your answer would be number 2. Next, Carrie placed a packet of coffee into a mug without overflowing as shown. Which of the observations about the packet of coffee is correct? So this is a question on matter, right? And specifically liquid. So right off the top, I already can remember what is the property of liquids. Okay, they have a fixed volume, they cannot be compressed, okay, but they take the shape of any given container. Okay, so the first one, both shape and volume of the coffee did not change. This is not correct. Why? Because the shape changed. So this is wrong. The shape of the coffee changed, but the volume did not. This is true. Okay. However, I want to check to see that the rest are also wrong. Okay, don't be complacent. It's very important. 2 marks each question. Number 3, the volume of coffee changed, but the shape did not. This is not correct. 4, both shape and volume of coffee changed. Wrong. The shape changed, but the volume did not. So yes, the answer is confirmed to be 2. So in exams, right, when you are reading questions, right, this is what I always tell students, especially when they ask you, which of the following are correct, or which of the following is true, or which of the following is not correct or untrue, highlight the word. Are they asking you for incorrect or are they asking you for correct? Because many of times students get this kind of question wrong because they did not read carefully what the question is asking for. And usually these questions they ask for things like incorrect. The students will look up for things that are correct. So be very careful. This is how careless marks are lost. 20 is a very, very common question and we need to know how to do this. So it says that substance R is a liquid at 160 degrees and a gas at 480 degrees Celsius. Which of the following is possible? So to do this kind of question, right, the first thing you should do is to draw a temperature line to help you. So on your temperature line, right, what you need, right, would be 2 points, and the first point nearest would be your melting point, and on the other point would be your boiling point. So there are three segments here. Now, the one that is before your boiling point, your melting point, sorry, would be actually be solid. And then after your melting point would be liquid, which I'm going to use another color. And then when it's after your boiling point, or it reaches boiling point, it should be gas. Alright? So by having this, you can understand that anything that goes above, that's at melting point or above melting point, will become a liquid. So when you look at your question, it says that substance R is a liquid at 160. Okay? So that means at 160, it's already a liquid. So therefore, the melting point, if you take a look at it, okay, and you write down 160 over here, it is actually before 160. So your melting point has to be a temperature that is lower than 160. Because if it's higher than 160, alright, it will not be a liquid. It will still remain a solid. So therefore, anything that is below 160 is a plausible answer. Anything that is above 160 is not. So when you look at the first column here, right off the top, straight away you can go ahead and cross out option 3 and 4. Because if it's at 200 degrees, it means that at 199 degrees, it will still be a solid, which is not the case. Similarly, they also tell you it is a gas at 480 degrees. So what happens is that, okay, 480 degrees is somewhere here. Okay, your boiling point needs to be below 480, cannot be above 480. If it's above 480, that means at 480 it is still a liquid. So therefore, your boiling point needs to be less than 480, okay, so that it will become a gas by the time 480 comes. So therefore, anything that is above 480 cannot be the answer. So for example, option 2, at 500 degrees, your R is still a solid, is still a liquid at, okay, 480. So this is wrong. So therefore, the only plausible answer is 450. So therefore, answer is 1. Next question. Jason set up 4 different circuits using identical bulbs and batteries as shown. In which circuit would P be the brightest? So this is really a question, okay, to check on the different, or whether or not you understand the implications where the bulbs are arranged in series to each other or in parallel to each other. So looking at such, okay, I would suggest highlighting P so that you know which one they're talking about. So from here, we know that when you in a series arrangement, right, the more bulbs you add, the dimmer it gets. Okay, so that is for your series arrangement. For your parallel arrangement, right, it does not drop in terms of brightness. Okay, when the bulbs are arranged parallel to each other, the brightness remains the same with each additional bulb that is added. So if you take a look at it, okay, one look and I know the answer will be 1, because this is the only one, okay, where P is actually parallel to the 3 bulbs are all in parallel arrangement. Okay, so therefore, if you just ignore and you just have 1 bulb, this 1 bulb here, let's just say, is 10 units. When you add another one, it's still 10 units, and P will still be 10 units. There is no decrement at all. So therefore, okay, P will be the brightest. Firemen wear clothing as shown when they put out fires. Based on the properties shown below, which material is most suitable for making firemen's clothing? So obviously, your fireman, right? For each of these, you should think whether or not it is actually needed. Okay? So for the first column, alright, okay, you have things like strong. Does it need to be strong? So doesn't break easily. So while most situations you will say yes, okay, you also need to look at other factors. So you want it to be strong because in firefighting, you're doing very heavy duty work. Maybe there could be dangerous items. You don't want it to tear easily. So you need it to be strong. So right off the top, you can go ahead and cross out A already. Okay, so this is correct. Okay, cross out A. Then obviously, if it's supposed to be clothing, you need it to be flexible, right? Imagine you wear a piece of armor suit. It's quite inflexible. Okay, so once again, B, you can go ahead and cross it out, leaving only C and D. It needs to be waterproof because obviously you're dealing with a lot of water trying to put out the fire. If it's not waterproof, water can seep through, that's one. Second thing is it will absorb the water, adding additional weight to the firemen as they walk around. Okay? And then after that, good conductor of heat. Of course, you don't want it to be a good conductor of heat. Okay? If not, your poor fireman will be barbecued. Okay? Because heat can be easily, okay, or can be quickly transferred from the surrounding to the fireman's flesh. So answer 3. Next. Okay, Jennifer made again using the objects as shown below. Okay? Now, so what happens is that they're telling you that this bar is used to catch the different fish. Alright? And then they tell you that rod P could catch fish A and fish C only, while rod Q can catch fish A and B only. So for this, right, I will do some annotation to help myself make sense of this. So if I take a look at this, my P can catch A and can catch C. Okay, so I know that for sure that in this case, what happens is that, alright, now this one over here, if it's a magnet, this has to be a south pole. Okay, this end has to be a south pole if it's a magnet, because A is actually a fish with north pole here, so opposite poles attract. So I tell myself that. Okay, then after that they tell me that rod Q could catch fish A and B only. Okay, so in this case, my bar B, okay, if let's just say if it's a magnet, could it be a magnet in the first place? Because if you look at the Q, fish A, fish B, they are both magnets, but yet the orientation is different. This is north at the top and this is south, but yet my rod Q can catch both. So straight away, right, it will hint me that okay, most probably this bar here is not a magnet. It's probably a non-magnet. It is just a magnetic material. That's all. Okay, so once I've gotten a sense of the situation, I then move down to the question to try and match. So which of the following shows, okay, the bars for P and Q? So the first one, okay, could be plausible. Why? Because south is here, what? South will attract to your north. Okay, that's correct. And this will also attract to bar C because a magnet can attract iron bar. But when you look at Q, is Q possible? No, because Q has the north facing here, this way. So Q by right will not be able to attract my fish A. Right? Because light poles should repel. So therefore, straight away, I can cross this out. And I'm pretty confident that Q needs to be an iron bar. So then, after that, I look at Q, which is an iron bar. Okay, I look at all those with Q with iron bar. I look at option 2. Okay, option 2 states that, okay, P, the top part, the bottom part here is south. South can attract to north. This will also attract my iron bar. Oh, okay, this is correct. So this is correct. Q is an iron bar which can attract both B and A. No issues. So this is also correct. So my answer should be 2. So once again, you should also go down and check the rest, okay, to make sure that they don't match in order to double confirm. Okay, but for time's sake, I'm telling you that this is the correct one based on what I'm showing you. Okay, question 24. Guo Wen stood under a lamp. Now this is a very classic question on light and shadows. Okay, he walked from position W to position X and then to position Y in a straight line. Which graph shows the length of his shadows change during this time? Now this question is actually akin to the question whereby the sun is setting and rising. Okay, a lot of students will think that this question is related to the question whereby the different position of the object, light source and screen. No, this has got to do more with the sun. So as you can see, right, I'm just going to draw it out. If this is the sun, okay, I hope most of you can remember, and this is the sundial, okay, when the sun is at overhead position, it is said to be the shortest. Okay, your shadow is the shortest. And when the sun changes position at a lower position, okay, the shadow is the longest. And it's always on the opposite side. So if your sun is this side, your shadow is cast this side. So similarly, okay, when your sun is also setting over here, the shadow cast will also be longest. But this time round is the opposite side. Okay, so as the sun moves from one side to the other, your length of the shadow will also change. So the lower your sun is, the longer your shadow would be. Okay, so as your sun grows slightly higher up, your shadow will be slightly shorter. Okay, I hope you all remember this. So this is actually the same for this question. So let's take a look. So he tells you that Guo Wen walked from W to position X. So as you can see, now that Guo Wen is actually moving, at first he's right under the light source, right? So his shadow is supposed to be the shortest. But as Guo Wen walks over to this direction, okay, the light source actually is at the side now. Can you see if he stands here? The light source is now over here. It's the same thing as if the sun is here. So what will happen is that his shadow will be cast onto this side and it should increase in length. Okay? So you need to first find something that increases in length. So I'm going to use a color to show you, maybe increase by so much. Then after that, he tells you that he walks from X all the way back to Y. So as he goes nearer towards the light source, he is going back to the position whereby it's directly under the sun. So his shadow should start to decrease again, grow shorter. Then after that, they say he walked past W and proceeded to Y. So because of that, his shadow is now further again. Can you see if I were to draw him here? Okay, the position of the light source is here. So his shadow should be very long. Sorry, I got no more space to draw already, but it's supposed to be longer. And why is it increasing in length? It's because the distance from W to Y is longer than from W to X. So once again, as he walks from here, okay, at the center, he's supposed to be the shortest shadow. As he walks from point W to X, his shadow will increase. Because as you can see, he is walking away from the sun. The sun is at the light source is over here. Okay, so his shadows increases. Then he walks back. He goes closer to under the light source. His shadow should decrease and then start to increase again. So when you look at it, the only one that shows this happening is actually number 4, whereby it increases, decreases, and then increases. Okay? So if you want to note down the point, right? So he starts at W. From W, he walks to X. From X, he walks back to W. From W, he walks back to Y. Okay? So answer 4. Okay, question 25. Ahmad conducted an experiment by placing 2 glass beakers, each containing 50 ml of liquid L in the same room. The liquids were kept at all different temperatures. He measured the volume of L remaining in each beaker after some time. Part of his results are shown. So my first question to myself would be, what happened to the liquid? And because it's exposed surface area, okay, I know that this has got to do with evaporation. So my liquid must have evaporated, correct? And then after that, it will ring a bell in me that this question is talking about factors affecting rate of evaporation. So basically, I will start to think in my mind, what are some factors that actually increases or decreases rate of evaporation? Okay, so one of it is actually exposed surface area. So exposed surface area will basically, the larger it is, okay, the faster the rate of evaporation, right? Another one will be temperature. So in this case, the very first one, if you take a look at it, beaker 1 has a higher amount of volume remaining, which means that evaporation was actually slower, okay, for beaker 1. So because of that, your temperature should be lower than 60. Okay? Because you don't want it to evaporate, right? Then you'll match up. So for the first column, anything that is above 60, you can cross it out. So leaving only option 1 and 2. And then they tell you that he repeated the experiment, this time different exposed surface area. So basically, in this case, it is shown that beaker 4 has a higher rate of evaporation because it's got less liquid left. So because of that, you would want the exposed area to be larger than 28. So therefore, the answer is 2. Okay? Now question 26 is a very straightforward question. It's a trick question. Now, when 3 identical blocks were attached to a tabletop using 3 identical springs, the spring will compress. Which of the following will be observed? So the answer would actually be number 4. Okay? Now why is the answer 4? Because, okay, remember this, gravity increases, okay, when the mass increases. So if you take a look at it, your first spring over here, right at the bottom, alright, is taking on the mass of the 3 blocks together with your spring. So because of that, alright, your gravity that is pulling, acting on this spring will be the most, because it's an accumulation of so many things. Okay, so it should compress the most, and then the second most, and then the least. Okay, because this has the least amount of load on it. So answer 4. Okay. Question 27. Alright? Okay, we will stop here at question 27. We'll do this the next lesson. Question 27. A steel bar AB was magnetized using the stroke method as shown in diagram 1. Diagram 2 shows the magnetic poles of AB after it was magnetized. So from here, you can actually deduce what happens, okay, when you use the stroke method. So as you can see, what you need to do is you need to follow. So the stroke method is always from this end to the other end, lift up and repeat. So that means the north part of it actually touches A first. So this is the first position that it touches, and this is the part that it leaves. So having said so, the north pole that touches the side A first actually became your north pole, whereas the part where it leaves became the south pole. So this is position 1 and this is position 2. So using this, we can then deduce what will happen later on. So then the question goes on to tell you that you have another 2 steel bars, C, D and E, F, okay, for magnetized. So once again, remember at position 1, the part where you touch first, it will become the north, or rather the pole that you stroke it with first. So in this case, the first one, this is position 1, this is position 2. Okay? So in this case, as you can see, right over here, okay, the north actually touches this part first. Okay, and then it leaves this way. So based on this, we know that this is going to be our north pole. And this is going to be our south pole. Okay? Similarly, for the other side, you can do the same thing. This is position 1, this is position 2. But this time round, take note that it is the south pole that is touching. So at this position over here, this would be your south pole, and this should be your north pole. So obviously you will want to check whether or not this is correct. So over here, this is your first position, whereas this is your second position, because it's stroking this way, right? So the part that touches this side first is actually your north pole, and when it leaves is your south pole. So does it tally? Yes, because if you take a look at it, this is actually this end and this is actually this end, so it tallies, right? Because you cannot have 2 opposing poles within the same magnet. So this is correct. Okay, and with that, we will have deduced the answer. So the answer is 3. Okay, moving on. Oh, by the way, since we're at this question, I just want to stress again, not all metals are magnetic. So how do we remember? We use the coins, C-O-I-N-S. Okay, so CO is actually copper. Sorry, not copper, cobalt. My apologies. Okay. I is iron. N is your nickel. And S is your steel. Okay. Okay, be very careful of the CO. Okay. It's a very common mistake to mistaken C for copper. Next. Okay. Eugene used the setup below to find out the time taken for a bob to make one swing. One swing is actually from A to B and then B back to A. This is one swing. He conducted 4 experiments. He did not change the size of the box and the type of strings. His results are shown below. Which 2 experiments support the hypothesis? The longer the string, the longer the time taken for one swing. So firstly, we need to annotate to help us make sense of certain things. Firstly, the longer the string, this should be the change variable. And then after that, this over here is your results. Now, take note that your results basically should not be restricted, because your results is actually an outcome due to your experiment. You cannot keep it fixed. So while they always say that, oh, there should only be one change variable, your results is not a variable, it's an outcome. So just be aware of that, because sometimes students go, oh, the results must be the same, because they consider the results as a variable. No. Okay? So support, that means it must agree. Okay? So take a look. The longer the string, okay? So remember, firstly, your bob over here needs to be constant, because they say he did not change the size of the box, right? So we assume that the mass is the same. So actually, based on this, right, it's pretty obvious that there's only one plausible option, which is C and D, because only these 2 are the same. B and A cannot be used to compare with anything. It cannot be 4 and 5, cannot be 3 and 5, cannot be 3 and 4. So it's pretty obvious that the answer is actually C and D, but we need to double check. So then after that, we check the longer it is. So we look at D. D is actually longer than C. Okay, that's true. The time taken for one complete swing is also longer. So yes. So indeed, answer is C and D. Okay.